Hi, this is Samia from Henna Fixation with your dose of Henna Fix, and this is a continuation of the series Keeping Records. So specifically events that you do outside, like in public events or community events, and I hope that you find a lot of useful information in this video and practical stuff that you can take and put it back into your business. So as far as where to keep records of this, I do keep it on the computer, but I wish that I wouldn't. So because I've been doing it already, it's kind of something that I'm used to on the computer, but honestly, I wish I could transfer it into a journal and I could find motivation and time to do that, because that way I can see it more clearly. It's in front of me, it's accessible all the time, and I just feel more connection to it when I'm writing it. It's a lot more easy to do it right there, as you know, instead of sitting on a computer and doing it over there. So I find it easier now to journal in a book about the events rather than doing it on the computer. And I think going forward I probably would do that. I'm not too sure, but I think I really want to though. Okay, so after all this rambling of how I need to improve my record keeping skills and take it from the computer onto a journal, basically that's the gist of it, I want to get to the point now. So keeping records of events that you're doing outside, which are public or community events where you are paying to be part of an event. Yeah, so basically I have this form where I have everything written down what I want to do. I write down the name of the event and I write down the date, how much I paid to be in there, and where it was located, because events happen throughout the city. So where was that event occurring? And I write that for all of the events. And then I move on to writing down what exactly happened in this event. So first thing I would write is the location of my table, of my booth, where I was located. So I would write down if it was at the end of the little, you know, wherever, in the front, in the back, wherever, you know, whatever helps you figure out where it was located. And I also write down which were my neighbors. So what do I have on my left side, who I had on my right side, who was I across from. That lets me know what kind of, because every event that you do, it's like they have little segments where they like to put people. These are the most organized events. They have everything organized, what they think is best. If they feel your henna would sell more in a kids section, they will put you in the kids section, and then they will later realize that probably wasn't a very good one, and then you can request to be put in another section. But regardless, they do have little, you know, divisions that they like to put their booths on if they're the ones who are putting you in. I know some events you get to choose where you want to be, so it depends, you know, where you are. So I write down all that stuff so that later on I can see if this was good for me or if that was bad for me. And especially if I have a booth neighbor next to me who was a little bit obnoxious, I can also note that and request that with the organizers later on if that was something that was really difficult for me to handle. So this kind of stuff I write down: where my booth was located in the event, who were my neighbors, and how did that work out for me. Another things I keep record of is the cost of the event. Not only the cost of what I paid to be a part of this event, but also if there was any overhead. Did I buy anything special for this event? Did I have to purchase something, you know, extra? Even if it's business cards that I had to buy additionally because I was running out. So I write down all of that so I have an idea of my overhead on this, and that way I can look at the total and see how much I really made. So not what the cash is telling me, but the reality of what I really made in this event and how much it really cost me. For example, if you do any events like Rent Fair or things like that, where it's a very themed event, so people want you to dress up a certain way, they want your booth to look a certain way, they want your designs to be a certain way, there is an additional cost that goes with that if you haven't already done it. So I record all of that, and I think that's fair because it helps you understand again how much you actually spent on this event, and later on you can go back and say, well, was this really worth it for me? Okay, and then I take a record of what designs actually sold. What designs, meaning which bracket were they in. Bracket from $5 to $10, $10 to $15, $15 to $20. So I have this range where I write down. So if you're using a platform like Square, for instance, to take payments, it actually helps you to keep record. You know, which item sold more. So they call items. So I have my items listed in the Square by price, for instance, right? So it will tell me $10 sold 20 times or 30 times, whatever. So I do record that also in my record because I want to know which designs sold most, which design limit I should say sold most, because I can then see how I want to price them, my designs later on. There's some events I've done where $5 was my most successful one. So the crowd coming in, or the environment, or the type of event it wouldn't be very smart of me to spend more or do a lot on this event when I'm only doing $5 designs. At another event, I might be doing more $25 or $30 designs, and I'm like, oh, so I sold more of these compared to the other ones, then maybe I can adjust my setup and how I approach selling henna at this venue at this time, this way later on. And then I also write down the type of design, which kind of designs the people want. Did they want more traditional designs, the kind of designs that I do, or do they want more Western themed designs, like tattoo kind of designs? So I do write them down. I no longer offer the tattoo kind of designs. I do not like them. I don't like to do them. They don't bring me joy. I don't do them. But in the past I would record, okay, this event, the crowd wanted this type of designs. So it really helps to know which kind of crowd you're attracting, which kind of crowd the event is attracting, and how you can go about tackling that in the future. I also record the helpers I have, the booth assistants who are there. I write down their names. I write down, if they came on time, or if they were beneficial, or if there's some tips that I need to give them for next time if I'm going to be with them. So I do write that down because I feel the type of booth assistant does affect the overall feel of the whole day. And I think it's essential to note that down, because if you have good chemistry, if they're good, if it's all working out great, but there's always tips that you can give them to improve. And then next time you can let them know in a very gentle and loving manner of what you wish they would do a little bit more of. And so I would forget, if that was last year I had them and then I had them again this year, I'm gonna forget all that stuff. So I do like to write it down, and that way you know exactly what your thought process was at that time. Another thing I like to write down, so I've done all the basics here, the designs that sold, the type of designs that sold, where the booth was located. I do want to add, sometimes I take pictures, not sometimes, every time. I take a picture of the booth, how it looked like, and I do like to add it onto the computer in the same form, so I have an image of what my booth looked like. So that kind of helps out too in some ways. I don't know. I don't think it has as of yet, but I like to do it anyway. I'm sure one day it will be useful. Right now, it's just there. Oh yeah, so going back, and so after doing all that kind of stuff, in the end, one of the things I write down is, was it worth it? So I spent all this money, I did all this time, it's a one-day event, it's a couple of hours event, it was a 3-day event. Was it worth it for me to be there? Did I like it? Was it an enjoyable experience? Was it a profitable experience? And so I write down all of those thoughts and any other thoughts that might be going through my mind. Something happened at that time which bothered me, or something happened which was like extra special, then maybe there was something that happened which made you feel really welcomed into the event, and maybe you can send an email to the organizer about it, or send a thank you card, stuff like that. So I think that's a wonderful idea, just to have like a little box where you write down your thoughts. What happened? Was it good? How did it go? Journaling bit done. And the last thing I like to write down is any tips for improvement. So what would I like to do different next time? So actually this part really helped me figure out my pricing. Because you write down, you're learning in the beginning, what are my prices, how do I price myself, how do I price that event, and really I would write down, say, well, I will change the pricing to be this way, I would try it this way next time. And this is how I removed the entire design books I used to have. I just got rid of them, and this was one of the reasons why I figured out that it is going to be beneficial for me, because I tried it out. You try out different things when you're doing it. When you're in there, you're like, this is not happening, let me try it this way. Will this way happen? So you play around with that stuff, and whether you like it or not, you're going to forget it. A lot of stuff happened that day, especially because it's so physically draining. Those events they require a lot of physical activity from your part. You're setting up the tent, you're setting everything down, then you're breaking it down, you're shoving it into a car. As for me, it's a whole day thing. It requires a lot of energy. So it's really beneficial for me to record things, the thought process, what I tried, as soon as I can to the end of the event. So normally it's the day after. I like to do it the day after anyway, because then I have to pay my booth assistants. I have to do all the math stuff and, you know, have all the numbers and all that kind of stuff. So the sooner the better it is, because I like to pay my assistant as soon as possible. So yes, so I write all that stuff down and I do reflect and do records of it as soon as possible. That's the day after. I think there was one time I did it not immediately after, it was like a day later. It was just a very exhausting event. So you know, you do the best you can. So that's what I did. So I like to write it down when things are still fresh. I can still recollect all information and I can write it down. Okay, so one thing I do like about doing it on the computer is that it does the math for me. The less work I have to do, the better. So for instance, I do have a form on Excel where I like to do the computer to do the work for me. So I will enter the numbers I need to enter, and I have the percentages, and it takes off the percentages and it gives me the numbers. For instance, I give a certain percentage to the booth assistants, right, after the event. So I write down the number of the event and it takes off the percentage. It does all that work for me. I know exactly how much to pay them without having to take out my calculator and use my mental energy for that. So when it comes to business and delegation, you want to delegate things to other people as much as possible. If you're anything like me, you don't have other people. You are the only people in your business. And so I use the computer as another person to do the work for me. It took some time to set it up. Once it's set up, it does all that stuff for me and it's great. I'm calculating how much the designs were. So $10 was taken by 30 people, that's $30, and I add it all up to see what the total is. So I do record that and the computer does it for me, which I do like. I mean, it's not really a lot of math, to be honest, but I'm telling you, after you've spent the day going crazy setting up and breaking down, you might want to have as little amount of work as possible. So at the end of this all, I guess my last tip to you is to use the tools out there to help you as much as you possibly can. Don't take more work on yourself than you have to. Allow other people, computers and apps and programs to help you out. You have less amount of energy to spend on, you know, this kind of stuff, and you can more focus on what you really like about the business, which is doing henna, meeting people. Well, that's for me anyway. If you find anything useful in this video, please give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. Let me know what kind of things that you would like to know later on. And if you have any further questions about what we talked about in this video. Again, you can always email me with your questions at info@hennafixation.com. That's where I like to read your emails. And I do like to respond in a timely manner. And I have been receiving a lot more emails, and I honestly am really grateful, because some of you guys are sending me pictures of your work and asking me to critique you and give you some sort of tips, which really helps me, because then the tips I'm giving you, I can also apply it to myself, because it's like looking at someone's work, it's an objective perspective into looking into your own, right? So did that make sense? I think it did. Objective perspective. I don't think that was said properly. And again, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate you and your likes and your comments and your just everything. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Until next time, henna on.